This is the XX Podcast. So we just watched together the 2011 film Thor, which was directed by Kenneth Branagh. I understand that this is one of your favourite films of all time.
I can't choose a favourite film, but I tend to... Oh, hello, ambulance.
It's an emergency.
So yeah, no, it is one of my favourite films, and I tend to when I'm in a mood just to watch a film, I like watching superhero movies, particularly Thor. So yeah, what's it about? So to set the scene, a group of astrophysicists, which neither of us can spell, which was great fun when we were making our notes, are chasing a phenomenon which neither of us can spell again, which made the sentence very difficult to write. And then they hit Thor. Then we skip into Thor's backstory, which I found quite fun because we kind of jumped straight from astrophysics into Norse mythology.
Yeah, I really like that transition.
Yeah. So yeah, Thor's backstory, he's about to be made king by his father, Odin, and then the frost giants attack Asgard, which is the home of the gods. Then I've written la fights, so that happens, there's lots of battles. Basically, he disobeys Odin, and as punishment for disobeying Odin, he gets banished with his hammer, but separately in the same way. So him and his hammer get banished, but separated, and the hammer is essentially cursed by Odin, basically saying that no one may wield it unless they are worthy of the power of Thor, which Odin has decided that Thor himself is not at the time of banishment. And then we cue back to Thor getting hit by a car. So the story is basically just about Thor becoming worthy of his hammer and worthy of the accompanying powers of Thor. Loki, of course, god of mischief, and Thor's brother, who eventually is revealed to not be his brother at all. Loki, his adopted brother, is behind everything, and it ends in a big showdown between Thor and Loki.
Yeah, slightly stolen brother at one point.
Yeah, he's a bit of a changeling. Loki is, in a way.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. The first fight that gets Thor sort of banished, exiled from Asgard, is he goes against the wishes of his father, and he goes to the place.
Jotunheim.
Yep, that's the one.
This is where Beth reveals her completely and utterly ridiculous knowledge of Norse mythology. Ridiculous in that I know more than a lot of people, but not enough to actually be intelligent about it. So it's lots of guesswork.
Lots of guesswork.
Remembering funny names of places.
Jotunheim. Is that right?
Jotunheim.
Yeah. So he goes there to have a basically kind of a rant at the ice giants because they ruined his party.
Yeah, so the frost giants invade and try and steal what we don't find out until the Avengers, actually. Sorry, double spoiler, is the Tesseract, which I think they just refer to as the device, or...
It's magic.
Yeah, the magic thingy. So they try and steal that.
Yeah, they tried to steal back from Asgard, interrupt the whole ceremony. Thor is no longer crowned king, so he goes to Jotunheim and has a little bit of a tantrum. I would describe it as that, because his friends...
At the king of the ice giants.
Yeah, he goes down with his friends and he's like, come on guys, we're gonna tell them it's not cool.
Yeah.
And all his friends are saying, like, I don't think we should be doing this.
But we'll come with you because you're Thor and you're our friend. And...
Exactly. And he gets very angry and he attacks a lot of people. He's wielding his hammer at everyone, everywhere, while everyone else is running off away. All his friends are running back home.
Yeah.
Incredible display of masculinity.
Yeah. So we were saying that Thor is the man. He is the manliest man of all men, and in fact, canonically, the reason that we have Norse gods in the Marvel universe is the reason they describe that we have Norse gods, and yet we have Thor, this current present being, is that in Norse times there was travel between the worlds, and Thor and Loki and Odin walked among us and then returned to their own dimension for a while and are now back to walk among us again. So this is a man who, when he came to Earth, the humans there then thought he was so manly that he must have been a god, despite he's actually just an alien, if you think about it. So he's got very many stereotypically masculine traits.
Yes, he's strong. He's strong-willed. He's physically strong. He's a warrior. He's brash as well. He makes decisions without thinking. Yeah, he's brutal.
Hot-headed, so sort of very manly in this way.
And he's quick to jump to aggression when he's upset.
He finds out that stuff's gone wrong at his party, so he flips an entire banqueting table over in anger.
Table flip.
Yeah, he's tantrumy. But what's quite interesting about that is that is what makes him, in a way, unworthy.
Yes, he's expressing too many of these particularly destructive masculine traits.
Yeah, because I mean, we look at Thor and compare him to Odin, and Odin is also, stereotypically masculine. I mean, you can't get more sort of movie tropey than old white man in charge, which is what Odin is. But he is measured and level, and he considers stuff, and he considers the politics that are going on between the ice giants and him, and how maybe we can let a small discretion go so that we don't create war and that kind of thing. But Thor is just, boom, I'm gonna boom things with my big stick, quite literally, in response to everything. But amongst all that, Hannah, you have an interesting point. So he's all of these...
Well, it was just a point that even though he does express all these masculine traits, and even damaging masculine traits, so he's not a perfect man, he does still maintain respect for women. So the way he interacts with Sif, he is...
Sif. Tell us who Sif is.
Sif is one of his friends, and she is a warrior.
Yeah.
I think in the original mythology, she is his wife.
She is, and she is famed for her long golden hair, which is one of those little Beth's a Norse nerd bugbears that I have, because in the film she's a brunette, and it's not okay.
It's not right. So his interactions with her are not altered because she's a woman.
No.
So he speaks to her in exactly the same way as he speaks to all his other male friends. Even though he is not necessarily a good man, he's aggressive and brash, he still maintains that respect and realises that it's important to respect everyone equally. And I think that was it's quite subtle, but it is noticeable.
He lets Sif be the warrior she is. He is protective of some of the other female characters, but that's in a more you are all civilians way. So he does treat women as equal, in that he lets the warriors go and fight. He doesn't go, oh Sif, no, you're a lady, you can't be involved in this. He's just like, yes, you are one of my warriors, let's go. He doesn't even bring it up.
Yeah, and at the beginning when he's trying to rally support for his little mission that he goes on, he turns to Sif and asks, so he's going around saying, I showed you this amazing place with awesome food, I think is one of the things he said to this guy. And he turns to Sif and says, who was it who proved that women could be just as strong or as brave and amazing warriors as men? And Sif turns around to him and says, well, I did. And he says, his response is not to be angry or not to be like, well, I was involved. He just says, and I supported you in that. Yeah. Because he's not trying to take credit for it anymore once he realises that it was her effort.
It's more matey than sexisty.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. Let's say that word.
The other female characters that I mentioned are actually the first two lines of the film. So it's Jane Foster and her sort of assistant, whose
slash driver.
Slash driver sometimes, who's called Darcy. But that's not actually brought up until way later. We don't actually find out her name until quite late.
It takes a long time. Also, her surname, I'm pretty sure, she never gets a surname.
Yeah, but so Jane and Darcy, and Jane is the love interest of the film. Eventually, what I quite like about this film, it does end with a kiss, in that filmy way that films do, but it doesn't feel forced. They're friends before they fall in love.
Mm-hmm. It's not one of those like love at first sight weird scenarios that people have.
Especially not because Jane hits Thor with her car
twice.
So yeah, love at first sight is not exactly. It's more like, oh my gosh, have I killed him at first sight?
Yeah.
So the first thing I noticed was that she was labelled as a scientist straight away by one of the other cast members.
Mm-hmm.
So the line is given. So Jane and Darcy are astrophysicists, or Jane is an astrophysicist. Darcy is her intern, essentially. And they are joined by Eric, who is a senior male astrophysicist who we eventually find out at university worked with Jane's father. So he's there as sort of a fatherish figure.
Yeah, fatherish. I would argue that he's not fatherish in the sense of being parental.
No.
So there's no sort of telling her what to do or trying to even really protect her.
No, he's more advice when it's asked.
Yeah, or if it's appropriate, really. He doesn't ever tell her like you're being stupid.
He steps in when basically at one point the government get involved in that way that they do, and so he kind of steps in there to calm her down a little bit, but he doesn't overstep. I think. But he says right at the beginning, because basically what they're doing is they are following this phenomena that Jane's been researching. He says one of the first lines of the film is, "You're a scientist, not a storm chaser." When they get caught out in this lightning storm, which turns out to have been caused by Thor being thrown through space-time.
Does he actually say you're an astrophysicist, or does he say you're a scientist?
You're a scientist, I think.
Okay.
A scientist, not a storm chaser. But we do find out that she's an astrophysicist really early on.
Yeah, very early.
Yeah. And the other thing I noticed was that she has fun while she's sciencing at the beginning. And it's great. She's just smiling the whole time. Like, everything's gone a little bit wrong. So she basically, there's this phenomenon that's been predicted and has been very measured and predictable, and then all of a sudden it's not, and she's kind of like, oh wow, this is amazing and exciting, and she has fun, which is really, really nice to see. And she's not wearing a lab coat, but she's not geeky. Yeah,
she's not geeky. She's stylish to an appropriate level, I would say. So she's not going out in heels in the middle of the desert.
No, she's
but she's not.
But she's still wearing a nice scarf.
It's sort of emphasising that idea that there doesn't have to be a separation between like femininity and science and reason.
Yeah.
She's not portrayed as sort of frumpy or spinsterish either.
No, she's just normal and likeable.
Yeah, very likeable.
I really like her, and that might be, of course, I can't forget to mention that Jane Foster is played by the adorable, amazing, incredible, I'm slightly in love with Natalie Portman. Which does not at all mean that I'm at all biased towards this film, because I love Natalie Portman and I love Chris Hemsworth and I think they're brilliant. But yeah, Chris Hemsworth, who plays the titular character of Thor. I mean, we were just talking, it's just generally an amazing cast. I mean, you've got Idris Elba, you've got Anthony Hopkins. It's just
did a pretty good job.
Pretty good job of casting that. But yeah, no, so she's pretty, but she's not unbelievable.
No.
And she's also not played up to her prettiness or sexiness at all. None of the female characters are over-sexualised, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. I think Darcy does have aspects of the spinstery scientist.
Yeah.
But ever so slightly, because she's a little bit scatty. She's wearing glasses. She's got messy hair. That is to that extent.
But you feel it's more
studenty.
Studenty, exactly.
Yeah.
And in fact, in the second Thor film, they introduce a male intern as well, who is similarly
scatty.
Yeah, similarly put together.
Okay.
And it kind of sort of balances that out, and so you do feel that that's because she's a student and an intern rather than because she's a scientist.
Yeah. They do point out that she's not an astrophysicist like everyone else.
No.
She does political science. She was the only applicant.
Yeah, to the job with this crazy, so you do feel like Jane is slightly ostracised by some of the scientific community, maybe.
Maybe. It could also just be something to do with the fact that it's way out in the sticks.
Like, they are
nowhere or anything.
Arizona desert or something, but it's
New Mexico? I don't know if that's...
Mexico?
Yeah, they say New Mexico.
New Mexico. I guess the fact that they are in the middle of New Mexico leads to they're in the middle of New Mexico and Thor's hammer crashes along with Thor. Now, at that point, no one can wield the hammer unless they are worthy of wielding the power of Thor, which means it's unliftable. So you get a very funny little scene with all of the sort of rednecks of the area in their pickup trucks trying to, manually haul this hammer up because it's fun. And then the government work out what's going on. And that is when we kind of get the good old government versus science marching in stompy stompy is what I've written down.
Yeah, they get well, I don't know if that's the point where the science versus government, because that what I would argue is the moment when they come and take all the equipment.
Yeah, I mean, it leads to that moment.
Yeah, it leads up to that, and then we have Thor just powering through all of the guards to get to the hammer. I was trying to remember the name, but
Mjolnir.
It's not Mjolnir.
Mjolnir.
Yeah.
Affectionately known, described in the film by Darcy as Mjolnir.
So he gets there and he's completely confident in a very masculine way that he's worthy. He wants his hammer back and he's gonna get it. So he fights his way through. He gets this massive guy and he very cockily says, like, I fought bigger.
Yeah,
gets to the hammer.
You're big, but I fought bigger.
Exactly, and it's all about size. And he gets to the hammer and he cannot lift it. And he is I would argue very embarrassed.
Yeah.
That he'd made such an assumption that it wasn't true.
Especially because he told Jane beforehand, he was like, no, I'm going to go in, and then I'll fly out.
Yeah.
And she was worried about how, she was just kind of saying, oh, you're just going to march in and out again? Yeah, like, that's going to work. And he's like, no, she'll fly out again with my hammer. Ha ha ha. Oh, no, damn it, that didn't work, did it?
Yeah, it doesn't go very well for him. It's the first sort of break in that character that we see.
Yeah.
In that he realises that he's not all that he thought he was.
Yeah, and then he's also he is detained by the government. The government base around this hammer as well is just full of men. None of the scientists in that are female, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think I noticed a single woman in that base with all the science tunnels and things.
Yeah, science tunnels is the best way to describe that. But yeah, then Loki comes and decides to stir the pot a little bit by lying to him. Basically tells him that his father Odin is dead and his mother doesn't want him to come back. She thinks it's his fault, and he cries.
A single manly tear. I think he tried another one. He tried to get another one. His eyes were watering a bit.
Yeah. But he breaks. He shows real, tangible emotion there. Which up to that point we haven't really had to that extent. I mean, we've had tantrumy emotion. I mean, even to the point where he can't pick up his hammer. He's embarrassed and he's upset, but it is still very.
Yeah, he's sort of screaming
to the sky.
Yeah, it's a very, very aggressive sort of outburst.
Yeah,
I would say in the rain. It's so emotional.
Whereas the loss of his family really affects him and really breaks him down. But he then goes on to admit his fault and openly say that he's been stupid and he was wrong, which was quite nice to have a male redemption arc that had the breakdown included. You do get male redemption arcs which are emotional, but you tend to get the bad then the good, and there's no.
Yeah, you don't see the point in the middle where they live with the they live with who they realise they are.
Yeah.
So they tend to just skip over the bit of struggle, have a nice montage.
Yeah, sort of a positive montage of, like, they kind of have a momentary struggle of, I need to change this, and then they get straight on with changing it. Whereas this moment in this film, he can't do anything to change it. He thinks he's stranded on Earth forever away from his family. And he decides that he's going to live with that and work at it. And he does. You know, he decides he's going to help Jane with her sciencing.
He does. And he does in a respect. He steals a notebook back for her.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
Back from the government. And then that is the moment as well, when they're going over this notebook, that the relationship between the two actually starts to build, which is really nice, because they start, the love starts coming in while they're talking about science.
Yeah. It's also, like, even though it's quite a nice intimate scene, they're sat in front of a fire in, like, her place that she goes to when everyone else is annoying her. It's not overtly flirtatious. He's just explaining to her how he understood the universe is to be laid out.
Yeah. I like the quote in the film at one point is basically Jane says, magic is science that we don't understand yet. which I really, really like. As someone who loves sci-fi and fantasy, but also loves science, I really like the concept of, like, maybe magic is real and it's this thing, but we don't understand it yet.
Yeah, she does also say that sci-fi is a precursor to science fact, which is a lot of ideas for new technology comes from sci-fi writing.
Well, I mean, the reason that people rushed to get hoverboards in 2015 was because Back to the Future said that in 2015 we'd have hoverboards. So people tried really, really hard to get them, to get technology to that point. And I mean, I think they're in the process of developing a tricorder style thing, like in Star Trek. Yeah. Sci-fi inspires sci-fact.
It does. There's even things like Nikola Tesla, just basically described a mobile phone.
Yeah.
And that's now a thing. And in many sci-fi, there's things like touchscreen and things like that. And it gives ideas for science fact, scientific research. I remember listening to, it was actually a podcast where they were saying that there was an outcry that there wasn't enough sci-fi writing because scientists were running out of ideas of what to research.
Come on, authors, come on.
I like that idea. Stuff. Yeah. So you still need that creativity.
You do need the creativity. But talking about sci-fact and sci-fiction, the way they explain this mysterious Bifrost, which is a rainbow bridge, which is great, and the way that Thor moves between his world of Asgard and our world of Midgard, or Earth, our universe, is an Einstein-Rosen bridge, which we literally paused and looked up because we wanted to know if it was a real thing, and it is. That is a wormhole. So they explained this mystical teleportation between worlds using an existing theory of wormholes.
Do you happen to know if that is the explanation they use in the comics?
I don't. I can look it up. If you would like to talk about something else while I do that quickly. What else do we have on our cheat sheets?
I have.
All of this is completely made up as we go along. We have no idea.
It's all just made up. No, I had one thing to say about Eric, is that he doesn't offer anything more than just advice quietly. He never tries to dominate the conversation. He just sort of follows them around. Initially, I was concerned that the two female leads were going to be just following around Eric and doing what he wanted to do, but actually he took no lead at all. And it was very easily recognised by Thor that Jane was in charge, or at least she was the one to be addressed. Yeah. So he straight away speaks to her. He doesn't ever default to speaking to Eric for direction or any kind of clarity. I'm gonna stop talking now because I've run out of things.
I don't think it is. I think it is in the film alone.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure how they explain it in the comics.
That's fine. I don't think they need to.
I've now found a list of wormholes in fiction, and I need to stop reading Wikipedia, otherwise I'm going to get completely lost in wormholes in fiction. But yeah, I guess. Oh, the other thing I really liked about Thor and Jane's relationship is there's a moment where Thor is complimenting her, and it's the first time that he does anything like that. It's still quite early in the film. It's still when they could be friends rather than a relationship. It's before that relationship deepening moment, and he calls her brave and clever. And I mean, it's Natalie Portman. She is gorgeous. Like, it could very easily have been, it could easily have been the moment he first woke up and gone, fair maiden. But he never, he doesn't really do that. He describes her as brave and clever. He acknowledges her brain before looks, and I don't think he ever says anything about looks.
I don't think there's a single comment about her physical appearance, and not even a throwaway line.
No.
It doesn't desexualize her at all, because she mentions that she has an ex-boyfriend, which means she's not a spinstery scientist. She's a woman. She's not
a cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
I'm like, hello, I'm here to science, and I don't do anything.
Yeah, she's got
emotional. She is emotional. She's also brave and clever, which I like.
She is brave and clever.
How the girls remain really covered up, including Sif, who I'm quite happy about, because there is a thing in superhero films and comics, and I know most of the time the films are just trying to stay true to the comics when they're doing this, but they are ridiculous, impractical, and over-sexualised. I mean, I've seen some brilliant articles, and I'll try and find them and link them. I'll try and find at least one about sort of Supergirl in the DC comics. I think it's Supergirl has no, I can't remember, but basically there's a female superhero whose costume involves basically it's neck high, but there's a circle cut out of the middle, revealing cleavage. And she's a flying superhero, and there's a very funny comic about how that would just literally, at the speeds that she could fly, just flip down and reveal her and be completely impractical. So Sif has very practical, yet still feminine armour. Jane is dressed appropriately for the weather. Darcy is also dressed appropriately for the weather. Thor, however, we get a gratuitous at least minute of him wandering around a flat topless, and then he gets soaked in the rain and his t-shirt goes all sticky and see-through. It's great. We've got sexualisation of male characters rather than female.
Yeah, and I wonder why... I was trying to work out why that would be, because most of the viewers, I'm assuming, would be male.
Yeah,
it tends to
straight
be...
male.
Yeah, would tend to be directed at straight male viewers. And I wonder if it was actually just to show off how muscular and masculine he was.
I thought it was quite refreshing. I mean, even last week we were talking about Ellen Ripley, who made it so far through the film without being at all nude, and then in the very last scene gets stripped down to her underwear. That never happens in this. I don't mean even in Thor, he's not in his underwear. He is in trousers. He's just topless. It
is interesting because there's also a contrast between the way Darcy and Jane approach that situation.
React to it. Yeah.
Darcy is she is full staring.
Yeah.
And she is not ashamed of it, which, you know, if it was the other way around, would not be appropriate. But Jane she tries to keep her eyes up, or just on his face,
the floor.
Or on the floor at some point. Yeah. So she doesn't want to objectify him, which again, I think is an interesting twist.
It's still very harmless in it. I think even Darcy, I think that in that situation it is more trying to show his literal godlike physique. I think they're trying to imply more
physical strength.
Yeah, he is inhuman in his, builtness, which is what makes it bloody impressive, to be honest, that Chris Hemsworth looks like that.
He had to do a lot to get that big.
Yeah, I mean,
pretty sure.
Go back to science, the diets of people when they are bulking up for films is absolutely incredible. Like the number of calories and different meals that people have. I might try and find another link to that about actors and how much they eat to look.
I think interestingly as well, the amount that Renée Zellweger had to eat to gain the weight for Bridget Jones, the first one, she had to eat so many donuts a day.
Really?
Yeah, and that's like a different kind of bulking, but to fit the character. I did want to come back to a moment in the scene when they're in the cafe. The first time
where Thor goes, "I like it," another, and smashes a mug on the floor.
Yeah, exactly, and he explains himself and why he's done it, because he explains that he just wanted another one. That's how he would request one.
It's cultural. It's a cultural difference.
Yeah, and Jane just says, "Well, you can't do that. You just can't do that. Don't do that again." No. And he doesn't. He's not offended. He doesn't get upset. He just says, "Okay, I won't do that again."
Yeah.
And he doesn't smirk or laugh or think it's stupid in any way. He respects that she has told him the way it is.
He looks like it might be slightly weird that he's being asked this, but no weirder than accepting a new part of a different culture.
Yeah. In the sense that he didn't realise.
Yeah. Maybe potentially even that he's a little bit embarrassed that she's reacting this way to something that he thought was so normal.
Yeah.
But I guess that could be equated to even, when you go to someone's house and they're like, "Oh, can you take your shoes off?" And you feel a little bit embarrassed that you haven't taken your shoes off yet.
Yeah.
But it's not unreasonable to not take your shoes off necessarily.
Yeah. It's also not unreasonable to ask someone to take them off.
Yeah,
exactly.
So
it was just quite a nice sort of he didn't assume she was asking something unusual of him. He just accepted it, that she has the authority to tell him that.
Yeah.
And just didn't wait for anyone else to say it. He just accepted it from her.
Yeah. Well, that was another thing I liked, is that she speaks up and is independent.
Mm-hmm.
So when they are going to this military base, she does that, in fact, precisely to the opposite of what Eric told her to do. Eric was like, "No, stay away, don't do this." And we find out when she's on the phone to him, she says, "I did exactly what you told me not to do." And also when Thor says, "I'm just going to go in and get stuff and then come back out again," she doesn't go, "Okay, yes, fine." She goes, what? Like, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
No, that's not going to work. So
Yeah.
she does speak up, and she is independent. And despite the fact that she's got this little crew, she also acts independently of them.
Yeah. I quite like that moment where she calls Eric and is like, I did the thing that you said I shouldn't do. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then hangs up. She's almost damsel in distress, but not quite. And it's not even really close to that. But it very easily could have been played that, in that she called for help, and she could have been crying down the phone saying, I'm scared.
She says, I did the thing. If I don't come back, come and find me here.
Yeah.
Rather than
it's like a
come
safety
and find
thing.
me, help me.
Yeah.
Which is, it's really nice. So yeah, I mean, people don't really like the Thor film in the Marvel catalogue. People don't like it. I really do.
I really like it. I mean, it's not my favourite film.
No.
We've been through this.
You like scary films.
I
found this week's film a lot less stressful than the last one to watch.
One thing I did actually, just one last thing I had to say, was that Jane does get angry, but she doesn't get angry in the very typical way that female anger is shown as in films as hysteria.
No,
she doesn't just get
she's
angry
not
and
shrieky.
crying and screeching and sort of unreasonable fury. She's passionate angry.
Her voice does raise and change pitch.
Yeah.
Because that is just a thing that happens. So there's a line between someone getting angry and doing this and screeching.
Yeah.
There is a difference.
There is a very clear difference, and her anger is very specifically pointed at one action, so she's got a reason to be angry.
Which is a perfectly logical reason as well. It's that they've stolen her life's research.
Exactly.
And she has no idea when she's going to get it back, and she gets handed a check.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, I made this stuff. A check means nothing.
Yeah.
You know?
And there was as well, right at the end, Thor walks to the end of the broken bridge and says, can you see her, to the gatekeeper, to Idris Elba. I can't remember his character name. Okay, there we go. And he says, yeah, I can see her. She's looking for you. But when you then see her, she's not pining away.
No,
she is sciencing.
She is sciencing her way. And
she's making more equipment. She's continuing her research with extra funding.
Yeah.
She's working hard, and she's not pining away. Like, she's not doing the whole. I want to say Bella crying. Is she in a bathtub or something? Is she just curled up in bed?
No, I think she's just
in Twilight. Yeah,
she's just sitting on a chair while the months go past her.
Yeah, she's not that.
No, she is active. And actually, spoiler for Thor 2 here, if you haven't seen it, which Hannah hasn't, it's not a big spoiler.
That's fine, go for it.
Basically, between Thor and Thor 2, the Avengers happens, and so Jane sees Thor back on Earth in New York on TV.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't go to see her.
Oh yeah, I remember there being a line in the Avengers film where they say it's okay, Jane is safe, far away from battle. So that was
she's safe.
I think maybe because they couldn't get Natalie Portman for that film, that they had to add that line in, but regardless.
But yeah, and then at the beginning of Thor 2, when Thor, spoiler, ends up back on Earth, surprise, surprise, Jane gets angry at him.
Yeah,
She's like, what were you doing? You've been gone for years at this point. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, well, like 2 or 3 years.
Okay, yeah.
But she's angry. And she's also angry that he got to Earth and didn't come and see her, which I quite like that her reaction isn't just she doesn't let him get away with it.
Yeah, she's not feeling sorry for herself.
No. And she's clearly, between the two films, kept sciencing as well, which is really, really nice to see. And of course, Natalie Portman also has a PhD, which we like.
Yes. What was her PhD in again? We looked it up last time.
Psychology, I think.
PhD in psychology. Dr. Portman.
Dr. Portman, which is great. So I think that's us.
Yeah, I think that's everything. That we had to say anyway.
Yeah, but tweet us at XX_science with what you thought of Thor, what you thought of maybe last week or last time if you're still catching up with our episode on aliens. Next time, we don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but I'm sure it's going to be fun. Also, comment on YouTube, which is below, which is exciting. Yes, comment below with your ideas as well. We'll read them there too, or one of us will probably, hopefully try. Maybe we'll work it out. Don't worry. I check the comments and there aren't any, and it makes me sad. So comment. But yeah, so I think that's us. I've been Beth.
I've been Hannah. And this has been the